Do want to take you out to a post from the Israel War Room. We check in with them quite a bit, and this says breaking documentation of airstrikes in Tehran. You can see that fire there in the distance in one of many photos that are making the rounds on social media, as again, Israel is warning Iran not to retaliate against their retaliatory attacks. Do want to bring in a friend of the show now, Mark Chandler, Director of Government Relations and Professor of Practice at Coastal Carolina University, also a former senior defense intelligence official. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us very early this morning to break all of this down.
You're welcome, Josh, and good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, first off, Mark, I do want to ask you about the overall assessments that we know so far. Do we have a lot of details? Do we know some of the damage left behind? The IDF saying essentially that they did target these military locations that serve as a threat to the state of Israel.
Well, I think that's a good statement that you just played there to kind of summarize what happened overnight. But it looks like Israel had three distinct waves of air attacks against Tehran and two of the provinces that would be located in southwestern Iran, the province of Khuzestan and Elam. And when we look at this, Israel specifically went after military-related targets. They went after production facilities for some of the ballistic missiles and the UAVs. So what they did is they attacked Iran's ability to produce the missiles and the UAVs that attacked Israel back in April, and again here, the recent attack on 1 October. So you're looking at a military strike, very targeted, very precise, as he said. I would say that in those three waves of attacks, Israel probably used F-15s, F-16s, and F-35s using precision munitions and probably launched from far away so that the aircraft did not have to spend a lot of time over Iranian airspace. So they have very accurate munitions that both they produce domestically and that we have provided to them for such long range and accurate strikes. There were also some reports early on last night I was watching about strikes in Damascus, and those strikes would be against IRGC facilities that Iran uses outside of the Damascus area, the Damascus airport, to support both their operations against the regime there, but more importantly, how the IRGC supports Hezbollah and its attacks on Israel. So I think you saw a very calculated, very detailed response. This was sophisticated. It's over 1,000 miles from Israel to Tehran. So the sophistication and the planning that goes into conducting this type of operation and then being successful. Early on, you're not going to see a lot of reporting, especially out of Iran. Since the attack started a little after midnight Israeli time today, I think now that you have daylight, you'll start to get some satellite coverage of that and see the effects that Israel had on those targets. So they'll start to evaluate their effectiveness throughout today.
We do know that Iran has said really over the past week, as we heard from Iranian officials, that once Israel does strike, they will only retaliate if there's extreme damage, if there are deaths, injuries, things of that nature. So at this point, we really don't know if Iran does plan to respond to this, right?
Well, no, we don't. That's the big question that's going to be out there for a few days. First, let me characterize this. That statement that Iran has been making for the last several days and trying to calculate it gives Iran an out. So they on the table, you and I have talked about the types of targets Israel could go after: economic targets, the oil infrastructure, nuclear targets, military-related targets, and senior leadership. So Israel chose the military targets, very precise and also very meaningful to strike back at what has hit Israel. That gives Iran an out. So by following that method of strikes, still meaningful, I think Iran now can give itself an out saying, well, Israel didn't strike us economically. They didn't strike our nuclear facilities. So we don't have to strike back, or severely at least. I do believe Iran will strike back, but now they've given them out to the level of the counterstrikes that Iran will do.
We also heard that essentially the U.S. had been made aware of this situation prior to the actual retaliatory strikes by Israel on Iran. Does Israel need the U.S., I guess, approval to do something like this? Or there's the possibility, I guess, that it could fracture the relationship between the U.S. and Israel even further? Is that a requirement that they let the U.S. know, hey, we are now going to carry out this attack at this time, and this is what we're going to do?
Well, first and foremost, Israel is a sovereign nation, so they don't need any outside approval for conducting any military operations in defense of its sovereignty. So no, they didn't need U.S. prior approval. I think what the meaning is behind this awareness is, one, we do have a good military and intelligence relationship with Israel. I know our political leaders are at odds, if you will, right now overall, but militarily and intelligence wise, it's strong. And so I think out of respect for that and out of the defense necessity, Israel gave the United States warnings so that our forces on the ground in Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, throughout the entire Middle East could be put on alert, which during such an attack like this, one of Iran's counterstrikes could very well be against the United States. Whether the support was there perceived or real, Iran has said that the United States military facilities are targets. So I think Israel gave us prudent warning so that we could put our forces on alert to be prepared for any kind of Iranian counterstrike out there. But permission, absolutely not. There are several incidents in the past I won't go into detail about that Israel has conducted strategic attacks in Iraq and Syria and not given us any advance warning on those. So Israel needs to and has conducted its strikes for its own sovereignty.
What you're looking at on your screen right now is one of the images that we saw come in. This is actually from Joe Truzman, who is with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's going to join us a bit later on in the morning, but you can see that photo there on the left side of your screen as he says the Israeli military released this photo of the chief of the general staff commanding the strike on Iran from the Israeli Air Force Underground Command Center there, working, of course, with others. And we did see some photos that came out of Netanyahu as well. What is the significance overall of this attack when you consider that, according to the Associated Press here, this is the first time that Israel has openly attacked Iran in this way?
Well, this is absolutely major significance. You know, what you just said about the Associated Press reporting is true. We know that Israel, although they haven't acknowledged it publicly, has conducted several operations inside Iran, especially against its nuclear weapons enterprise. You know, they've gone after scientists, engineers, and even some of the facilities inside of Iran. But those have been covert and clandestine intelligence and special operations attacks. So they don't really acknowledge that. But to go to this level, it's the first time since the 1980s Iran and Iraq war that Iran has been attacked by another nation on its soil, at least openly acknowledged in that. So that is significance in this give and take, if you will. But Josh, I want to point out something else. The Middle East dynamics are no longer the same. When we go back to the September 27th strike, where Israel killed Hezbollah leader Nasrallah, that changed the dynamics that have been in place really for 30 to 40 years in the Middle East of how Iran and Israel will retaliate and work against another, Hezbollah and Israel. And so that was a warning. And I don't think that Iran did a good job of taking that warning that Israel has now changed its dynamics and changed how it will respond to threats. So they're trying to put the world, if you will, at least the Middle East and their main adversaries, on notice. And by doing the strike against Iran and coming out so quickly to acknowledge that overnight, that's a significant change of how Israel is telling its adversaries, we are prepared and we will attack you directly from this point forward. That's definitely a message that needs to resonate inside Iran and its leadership.
Are you surprised at how quickly the IDF did come out? Daniel Hagari posted a minute-long video explaining this is underway, and then within a few hours said this is over, here's what we did, and then issued that warning to Iran saying don't retaliate to our retaliation. Is that surprising considering what we would normally see?
Yeah, absolutely. Because normally it would take a while if the Israelis even acknowledge that. And I think that it goes into what I'm talking about, that new dynamic. This is Israel absolutely putting Iran on notice and telling Iran and anybody else who wants to come after Israel, because Israel's struck the Houthis twice with major air attacks. They've gone after all the leadership in Hezbollah. So Israel is directly through Gari saying, hey, don't come after us. We will do this again. We are done at this time. And they do it so quickly, absolutely meaningful to that Iranian regime. And don't forget, the Iranian regime is all about maintaining power and staying in power as they move forward.
I want to talk about the leak of those classified documents. You and I have discussed this quite a bit over the last week, and there were questions about what was included in those documents. Based on what we've seen so far, some of that satellite imagery was there inside of, again, those papers that were put out on Telegram. Does it appear that that caused any sort of issues in this strike? Because still days later afterward, we did have that strike take place.
Yeah, I don't think it had a major effect, Josh, on the strike itself. It might have affected the timing a little bit, but the biggest thing is the operational security that you and I have talked about before, because we did see Israeli aircraft flying hundreds, if not 1,000 miles to conduct these strikes in enemy territory that was well defended. You know, they've got Russian air defense assets. They've got some old U.S. air defense assets inside Iran. And so Israel was putting its airmen in danger when it conducted these attacks. So those strikes that leak led to, operational security breaches that from my background, my military background, my intelligence background, are egregious in anything we're going to do. It does speak to the shaky ground that senior leaders or perhaps some in this administration are anti-Israel, and you start to look at how that plays out. But militarily, I think it helped Israel perhaps judge and maybe refine some of the plans to ensure the safety and success of this operation.
Do we know how the people there in Iran feel about the supreme leader, the regime in general, the IRGC? Do we know if they support them, if they're against Israel? Do we have kind of a take on that?
Well, I've got to tell you that generally the Iranian population overall does not support the regime. I would say it's in the minority of the support that the regime has and the supreme leader has across the Iranian population. It's very unpopular with its people. It's a very oppressive, authoritarian regime that looks and controls its people. Matter of fact, overnight, early this morning, the regime has threatened to put people in prison for 10 years, and this is going to be enforced by the IRGC and the religious police, of anyone providing information or video or any kind of data to Western press about the attacks. So Iran wants to de-emphasize the impact that Israel had on this, and they're going to do that through an authoritarian way. If I go back just 2 years, Josh, to student protests that occurred in almost 50 cities across Iran, the IRGC went in, the religious police went in, the national security went in and really brutally stamped down those protests, killed almost 100 students at the time, jailed hundreds more. And so that Iran just doesn't put up with any kind of protest or resistance to its authority. So they're not popular, but they're so authoritarian, and they've got a core IRGC and security around them that they're not going to put up with any kind of resistance.
Is it kind of just at this point a waiting game to see how this all does play out and really what happens next?
Well, unfortunately, we're in a wait and see mode. I do think Iran has to retaliate just to save face. It's kind of an Arab mentality that they're going to do something. Now, I have talked before as to how open an Iranian response could be. They could wait several months and attack somewhere outside of Israel, outside of the Middle East, go after an Israeli backed target or an Israeli affiliated target. So they could do that and then say this was for this attack. But I think they're going to calculate how they come back at this. Israel, very precise, went after military targets, reduce the collateral damage, hit at night to further reduce any other casualties. And so when we look at that, how Iran calculates its response, which there will be one, really determines the next level of escalation. Israel did not strike as many targets as it could, or the type and breadth of targets that it could have. And Iran knows that. Iran has that as a calculus to how it wants to respond. So we're in a wait and see. We'll see how this plays out. Again, it's all about Iranian regime security. And I know they want to assure that they stay around. So they know Israel can do more damage. We'll see how this plays out.
I do want to show you some of that video there that you can see off to the left-hand side of your screen. That's just coming into the newsroom, and you can actually see some of those missiles that are intercepted overhead. This is actually above Tehran there in Iran, happening as all of this was getting underway. Again, that video here just coming into our newsroom. My last question for you, you kind of touched on this already, but are you surprised that this attack wasn't even larger?
I am a little bit surprised. The U.S. has been really trying to push Israel to hold back on the breadth of targets that it could hit. Don't go after the nuclear sites. Don't go after economic sites. And so I think in some respect, Israel took that under advisement. And I do hear calls already today in Israel, from some of the more staunch conservatives and folks in Israel saying we should have done more. But I think what this does, it sends a notice. As you pointed out, this is the first direct, publicly acknowledged attack, military attack by Israel on Iran. And so when we look at that and we look at the types of targets, I think Israel was very prudent in its planning, very precise, but very meaningful in these targets. It did damage to the Iranian ability to fight. It did damage, and it told Iran, we can do more. Don't forget, in April, they went against a special air defense capability around a nuclear site. So Israel is messaging Iran, this is what we did. We are done. However, we can do more. And I think if you see another phase attacks, depending on, as I said, what Iran does next, you will see the target list start to broaden out to hit those economic targets, hit that oil infrastructure, and possibly go after some of the softer nuclear targets. This is a warning, a very good warning, but a very good operation.
All right, Mark Chandler, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and breaking it all down. We appreciate it. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Josh, I think your questions covered it all, especially in the dynamic situation. We're going to have to see how this plays out over the next couple of days. We'll probably see some imagery released from Israel to show its success, since Iran will downplay this. So I think the next 72 to 96 hours are going to be critical to see how this plays out in an Iranian response, and then if we're going to see escalation.
And a good point there, because Israel always releases those videos showing the strikes there that take place in Lebanon, on Hezbollah, and also the situation in Gaza. So we will probably get some video fairly soon that we'll pass along and show here on Live Now. Mark, thank you again for taking the time to be here with us so early. We appreciate it.
You're absolutely welcome, Josh. I wish you a lot of luck today. It's going to be challenging.
Thank you. Appreciate it.